Hey, it's Dan back with another video, and it's been a little while. January, I think we had a video on the Trump-Panama Canal news at the time, where he said he was going to take the canal back by force. Whole nother subject, but that has since resolved itself, as I think we all figured it would, diplomatically. Quite an interesting situation. There will be a follow-up to that video with a period MRE from the late 80s, because we did discuss Operation Just Cause in that video as part of the history of the whole relationship between the United States and Panama. But recently I revisited the book The Liberator and the Netflix series, and I realized I meant to make a video about this a couple years ago when it came out. I had read the book, and then the series came out. I was very excited that they had announced a series about it because the book was excellent. But the point why I meant to make a video back then was I have in my collection, I'm very fortunate, a collection of artifacts from a World War II veteran from here in Ohio who served in the 145th Infantry, and or it's not the 145th, excuse me. Okay, so had a little interruption there. That's why it's hard for me to make these videos, and they don't get put out as often as I'd like. But that's life. We have responsibilities outside of talking about history with people on YouTube. But it is a passion. So anyway, as I said, I had read the book The Liberator. Excellent book. If you haven't read it and you like World War II history, it's a must read. It's one of the best I've ever read. The author, Alex Kershaw, just great storytelling. It is a story of Felix Sparks, who started out the war in the 45th Infantry Division, National Guard unit out of Oklahoma, as a second lieutenant, and would end the war spending 500 days on the line, and would become the commander of the regiment at the war's end. They started in North Africa, went up through Italy, through France, fought in the Battle of the Bulge, and would eventually liberate Dachau. And it's a truly incredible story. Then Netflix made a very short mini-series on it. I think it's like 4 or 5 45-minute episodes, kind of like a Band of Brothers, but it's done in live animation. It's really worth watching. These guys went through some of the worst combat. Anzio, going up, getting stalemated in northern Italy there along the defensive line Germany had in northern Italy that the Allies never really could break, so they diverted through southern France, following up the D-Day landings, would fight through France, and then into Germany and liberate Dachau. And Felix would be almost court-martialed for some of his troops shooting some SS camp guards after they had gone through the camp and witnessed the trains and everything that had been going on. And he took full responsibility, even though he had no part in it. They were his men, and it really speaks to his character. But I wanted to make the video in particular because I actually am fortunate enough to have some artifacts from a soldier who served in the 45th Infantry, who had passed away here some years ago in Ohio, and I was able to get his whole grouping from his family, less the Luger pistol, unfortunately, that had been given to someone else. But his uniforms and his artifacts he had brought back, his other bring-back items, are here in my collection, and it really brings the history of the 45th Infantry to life when you can put hands on it and tie it back to the book and the mini-series. So I'm not going to show you everything because it's quite a lot, and some of it I vacuum sealed away at this point. But one of his uniforms here, you can see his private stripes. So maybe he was a replacement. He maybe got to the unit later in the war, my guess. But he could have been there the whole time and just never really got moved up. I don't know what his role was, but being that he had quite a few bring back items, which I'll show you, they're in my German display here in the room. I have kind of my stuff displayed in a way of by country and time period, World War II, World War I, etc. So you can see that classic 45th Infantry shoulder patch that you'll see in the miniseries I'm wearing. You know, it's a Native American eagle. They're from Oklahoma and I believe Arizona, a couple of the plains and Southwest states. A lot of Native Americans, a lot of people of, who are Mexican descent, you know, served in the 45th, and they talk about that in the series and in the book. Over here we can see a service badge for World War II. And this was the standard olive wool field shirt that would have been worn either in garrison or underneath the HBT uniform in the field. So one of his uniforms. Bear with me a moment. Okay, so I'm having a little camera trouble. I really need to get a GoPro, but that costs money, and this is just a hobby. So another item here are his combat boots, his M1943 double buckle combat boots. These are what I'm sure he wore in Europe as he served in World War II, and that's just truly incredible to hold something like this and imagine where these boots walked. Did they walk in Dachau? Did they go on the beaches at Anzio? I don't know. Unfortunately, I get to speak to this gentleman, but it's very well possible that he was there, whether it was under Felix Sparks or another regiment or another company. I don't know, but there's the potential that he was right there with those other men that you see in the Liberator and you'll read about in the book. And that's really fascinating. And that's part of why I got into military history. I loved history since I was a kid. And I came upon a World War II helmet in a barn, and it just struck my fascination to be able to think about the people and that you could touch it. You can't touch things from ancient Rome. I mean, you can, but they're in museums and they generally frown upon that. So I was able to start finding these things, talk to people who had been there, and they started giving me things, and that's how it all kind of, this collection began. And it's just, when you can connect a story like this that's more mainstream to something you have and share it with people, it's really neat. So those are two items that were his personally, and I'm going to show you behind me some of the items that would have belonged to German soldiers that he brought back from the war. So we're going to move over here. All right, so now that we looked at the couple items that belong to the gentleman himself, like I said, some of them I've since packed away and are vacuum sealed, so I don't want to undo that process. But we're going to look at some of the German items he brought back that are here in my German display. In the room, everything kind of displayed in by era and type. So I have all my American, my British, my German stuff together by period. So I'll state this as by no means to glorify anything with the Nazi regime or the Third Reich. It's just to remember the history here, and that's important. So please no one be offended by what you're about to see, but we're going to look at some of the items that were brought back here. So here on the mannequin, you'll see a M1943 German parka, winter parka, in the Italian camouflage pattern. This was made in both the field gray and then this Italian camo. Now, as we said, the 45th Infantry came up through Italy and would have encountered, obviously, Italian troops as well as German troops, a lot of hardened Wehrmacht, Luftwaffe, and SS units. And these parkas, and especially in the camo, were issued to more of the elite units. And the Germans utilized a lot of allied technology in the sense of their allies, and they, whether it be materials, weapons, partially because they had to, and partially because they were willing to experiment. So I think that's partially why they use this camouflage. It was designed by the Italians for that environment. I'm sure they had the fabric, and they used that out of practical purposes. And the Germans were big users of camouflage in general, both in World War I and in World War II. Well, most of your Allied troops, including the United States, were still wearing solid color olive drab uniforms. So on here you can see the binoculars, German issue binoculars, and I believe that more than likely the items he brought back probably came from a single individual I could be wrong, but they all seem to add up. They would have come from a Luftwaffe non-commissioned officer, and I say that because the binoculars, there is a compass I'll show you, and then there's epaulets of a Luftwaffe Anzio, as well as a Luftwaffe belt buckle. Could have been a Fallschirmjäger, could have been a someone who was operating a flak gun, but being that there's the binoculars and the compass, leads me to believe that some sort of Luftwaffe ground unit, more than likely a Fallschirmjäger because of the binoculars and the compass, they would have been involved in some sort of ground combat, more than likely having those items. Just speculation though. So you can take a look at the binoculars. We can see they still have the leather strap, although it's very fragile. We're missing one of the eye cups, but those are really cool item there. As I mentioned, there was the compass, standard issue German compass, the Luftwaffe non-commissioned officer, a single epaulet. The piping color indicates partial to branch, and I really need to look that up, because if it all came from one person, that would indicate possibly what their role was. I just can't remember what color piping is. If someone knows that, put it in the comments. I need to reference it in one of my books. Here is that Luftwaffe belt buckle that I mentioned. And then underneath here, let's move. The P38 is going to, from another veteran grouping, it will be the subject of another video. I'm going to move that aside though. And underneath here, we have our German ground assault badge, but not related to this particular video, is a German parka hood. And I mentioned they used a lot of camo. This is a fall foliage hood, and you can see it's white underneath, so you could reverse it and wear it in the snow. I wish I had the entire parka, because these are worth quite a bit of money. But even just the hood is quite neat, especially in the fall camo, because it's still fairly rare. And these were also, this style camo was particularly issued to SS troops. And as I mentioned in the first part of my video, the 45th fought through the Battle of the Bulge, did encounter SS troops in the mountains along the French-German border, and it's very well possible, that hood came off an SS trooper, either in the Italian mountains or in the mountains between France and Germany, the Vosges mountains. I'm probably saying that wrong. I'm not good with French, but there was a lot of intense fighting there where the 45th and the SS faced off in a what was part of a secondary offensive of the Battle of the Bulge, and where the Germans had launched a secondary attack south of the main attack that was taking place north through the Ardennes, to try to cut off and also draw forces away from the main attack. And that's where the 45th came up through the south of France. That's where they ended up, and they ended up heading right into that attack in the winter of 44-45. And then lastly, we have this Italian canteen. So, like I said, obviously we discussed that in Italy, and I'm guessing he had recovered that from a captured Italian soldier. So, just a few items, that he brought back that I think it's just, like I said, it's all fascinating. It all tells that story that we get to see in the film on Netflix or in the book. And I thought it would be neat if you've watched it or read the book to get to see some items that were really there, really came from that story. So hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be coming back at you with some more videos like this here in the near future.